Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Harakakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and Shalom to all the brothers doing work in Syrian truth. Shalom. So the situation with these banks in the US is continuing to progress. And it is something where, as time's gone on, the scope just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Because I got this on CNBC. It says Moody's cuts outlook on U.S. banking system to negative, citing rapidly deteriorating operating environment. So Moody's Investor Service cuts its view on the entire banking system to negative from stable. The big three rating firm cited a rapidly deteriorating operating environment despite regulators' efforts to shore up the industry. So yeah, you had like Silicon Valley Bank, go kaput. I had a run on it, and that's kind of been the jump-off point, because more or less lots of startups and whatnot had cash in there. And now that it's ceased to exist, it's hella companies basically they got the guaranteed 250k that the government covers, but then they're gonna be down multiple millions. So all kinds of through. But now as well, on top of that, other banks are basically, trembling. And it's like, even with, there's the government's basically said, what was it, Janet Yellen, I think, said it was, there was going to be no bailout, no government bailout. I said, and over here in the UK, I believe, HSBC said they're going to buy up, help aid, the UK companies that basically had money in the bank. But it remains to be seen just how far it's gonna go, because now it's essentially like the entire banking sector is kind of being looked at like it's iffy, and that's why the downgrade is happening, because it's not just that one or two banks, as well as Silicon Valley Bank, was it Silver Bank, I believe, and no, Silvergate Bank and Signature Bank. Yeah, it's down there. So we changed to negative from stable. No, we've changed to negative from stable. Our outlook on the U.S. banking system to reflect the rapid deterioration in the operating environment following deposit runs at Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate Bank, and Signature Bank, and the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, Moody's said in the report. The move followed action late Monday when Moody's warned it either was downgrading or placing on review for downgrade 7 individual institutions. The moves are important because they could impact credit ratings and thus borrowing costs for the sector. In its downgrade of the entire sector, the ratings agency noted that the extraordinary actions taken to shore up impacted banks, but it said other institutions with unrealized losses or uninsured deposits still could be at risk. Yeah, and that's kind of as people realize they're in that group, that's when the run happens, and then the first people there will get, they'll be able to get cash money. But then after that, it's just gonna be like, yo, there's nothing left. Like we got to fold. And it's funny because the nature of how the system works is most, if not all, banks are incentivized to not have money just there for people wanting to withdraw their whole account. They basically want to be flipping it and making money, and that's the nature of how this has worked. Which is why it's like, if that flip is flopping, then there's a bunch of people that actually they might think they have 4 million savings, but actually flat broke. It's fucked. But it's people are gonna go nuts as as these things become realized. So as the Federal Reserve established a facility to ensure that institutions hit with liquidity problems would have access to cash. The Treasury Department backs up the program with $25 billion in funds and vowed that deposits with more than 250K at SVB and Signature would have full access to the funds. But Moody's said that concerns remain. Banks with unrealized security losses and with non-resale and uninsured US depositors may still be more sensitive to depositor competition or ultimate flight. Yeah, it's funny because you've had like the tech sector, essentially all the stocks have been getting battered and bruised for the last little while, last few months, and seen as that's a big part of U.S. investment, general investment over here in the U.S. People are gonna be down. Not to mention just the shit that banks get up to. It's the same shit that was going on in like 2008, where they're gonna be doing dodginess, or they're just gonna be like, it'll catch, gambling essentially, and then just losing hella money through as all hell. With non-retail and uninsured U.S. deposits may still be more sensitive to depositor competition and ultimate flight, with adverse effects on funding, liquidity, earnings, and capital, the report said. Bank stocks rallied strongly despite the downgrade. The SPDR Bank exchange traded fund rose nearly 6.5% in the morning trade. Major indexes were also up, with the Dow Jones up nearly 450 points, or 1.4%. Moody's on Monday downgraded Signature Bank and said it would remove all ratings it placed the following institutions up for review. Potential downgrade: First Republic, Intrust Financial, UMB, Zions Bancorp, Western Alliance, and Comerica. It's funny because for a minute as well, everyone's been talking about Credit Suisse, and I think Deutsche Bank as well. No, wait, was it Deutsche Bank? No, I think there was another bank as well, an investment bank, where Credit Suisse for a while has been getting spoken about like it's not it's been having issues, because I think the CEO came out and said something, and it was kind of like implying like, oh, everything's not all good under the hood. So we'll see how far it ripples out, because it can basically just jump into complete other banking sectors, which wouldn't even be a surprise. So I said the firm noted that an extended period of low rates combined with the sea pandemic related fiscal and monetary stimulus, have complicated bank operations. SVB, for instance, found itself with some $16 billion in unrealized losses from long-dated treasuries it held. As yields rose, it eroded the principal value of those bonds and created liquidity issues for the bank. Long a favorite of high-flying tech investors that couldn't get financing at traditional institutions. SVB had said those bonds are lost to meet obligations. Yeah. And it's funny because it's been completely obvious and observable that there's been an upset. Like, even I remember, what do you call it? Like when the it was over here. It was called furlough over here. There was stimulus checks in the US. Like a lot of people just sat on it as well. There were people that just sat on it and didn't even spend it. Like it didn't even serve its purpose. But there's a lot of actions that were taken where it was like, okay, there's a reaction that needs to take place down the line, and then it's like, oh, it ain't happened. So it's no surprise the balance has been completely off for especially for the banking system, ESO's banking system. The balance has been completely off. Like it's been the way it's been able to operate is like you know like it's been flourishing naturally. But what's been happening for the longest, the government just dumped injected hella money into it, and the economy ain't moving at the same rate. So it's completely obvious that you're gonna have a bunch of places where their so-called success or capabilities are completely fabricated. But that's the nature of the beast, man. That's the nature of Esau's rulership system. Well, I say his rulership, his monetary system, man. That's really how it works. It's a mirage, but only for so long. Because now it is that people are realizing like, oh, it's everything's not hunky dory. So yeah, James 5:1, it says, "Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you." And yeah, really for the elites. Go to now, you rich men, because now they're being impacted, but really it's for those with actual wealth. It's basically going to be felt, because why it says your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. The gold and silver, no, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. Yeah, a lot of what these guys are gathering, especially the actual, riches, is all for the last days, man. For the prophets. Just like how the Egyptians got spoiled, now the modern day Egyptians, which are the Americans, they're gonna get spoiled too. And a lot of these upper echelons, let's say, will be the guys, they'll be on the losing side of that equation. It says, your gold. Oh wait, it says, "Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, wishes of you kept back by fraud, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth." What is going on? You've lived in pleasure It's not happening. Lived in pleasure on the earth and have been wanton. And you've nourished your heart as in the day of slaughter. You've condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Yeah, it's essentially, you've been able to have your run. You've been able to do, whatever madness came to mind. And, you're flourishing. You're so-called assuming that you're blessed, man. But what's the reality? The reality is those riches ain't gonna do too much for you. Because even Isaiah 13:17, it says, "Behold, I'll stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it." Yeah, when it comes to that military conflict, Russia, who's basically been forged for this purpose, of the end of America, these guys ain't gonna, they're not gonna come in and be like, oh, some bucks, okay, let me just turn around. These guys have been, these guys are on a madness, man. And you got that video of the guy, the guy just out in the middle of the fucking forest training in the snow, and then there's just like a bear just off to the side, man, just chilling there. Like, these men are being raised in a different environment. Meanwhile over here, it's men are getting raised with a teddy bear instead. They, it's a completely different mindset and approach. Says that bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. The eye shall not spare children. Yes, these guys are gonna be coming through completely raw, and that's what we see coming up, man. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "And the Lord Yahweh answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry." Yeah, the vision's for an appointed time, and now we're in a time where these things are being fulfilled left and right. Can definitely tell it's not tarrying in the slightest. But the vision's basically being fulfilled at every point. This is what behold, his soul which is lifted up is not bright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth a home, who enlargeth his desirous hell, and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Yeah, same thing. It's that overwhelming hunger, man. That desire to just basically be like, okay, if I just have everything, and you can just give a pittance up, for the people to basically survive on. It says what? Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And yeah, that thick clay is a big factor of how Esau is basically built up, man. Them heavy debts. That's a big part. Because, leveraging money, that's what Esau's been on for the longest. And that's how he's got the return. But then what? It's them heavy debts are gonna work against you too, as you're seeing now what's going on with all these banks. Them basically, flinging funny money around. It's now like, oh, okay, people want to get their money back. That shit ceased to exist. Yeah, funny as hell. But hey, that's how it is. But yeah, we'll continue to see. It's still developing, man. So we'll see how many dominoes are gonna fall off the back of this situation with the banks. But yeah, I'll leave you there. Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.